BelGeode, and we are back with some more Explain 11 in virtual reality. Howdy, folks, and we are back here in Explain 11. And tonight we are in the Balearic Islands. As always, we are at Mallorca, Palma de Mallorca. And this airport is a custom scenery. I changed it up after the Pond Racer video. So I'm currently using a payware by Just Sim. So the link, of course, will be in the video description below. And the reason why we came back here, you may have noticed that the previous video, we were in Menorca, which is the island just next door to Mallorca. I had actually intended to do this video before I did the Huey video, but since the Huey changes were important, I wanted to do that video first. Now, this aircraft that we're going to be flying tonight is one that I've been meaning to show you for quite some time now. This is, of course, FlyingIron Simulations P-38 Lightning, otherwise known as the Fork-tailed Devil. This is one of the birds from World War II that helped to win the war for the United States. And it is my second favorite World War II aircraft of all time. The first, of course, being the Corsair. So I wanted to show you this for two reasons. Number one, it's just such an awesome aircraft and pretty in-depth. And number two, if you've been following the channel for any while, you know that some of these developers have actually moved on to other platforms. And hopefully, FlyingIron Sims, their Spitfire has already come out for Microsoft Flight Simulator. I'm hoping at some point in time, they will bring this beauty to Microsoft Flight Simulator as well. So if they put the same kind of love into this as they have with the Spitfire on both platforms, you can expect to get a pretty good product should they decide to bring it to Microsoft Flight Simulator. At the time of this recording, I do not have any confirmation from FlyingIron Sims as to whether or not they do plan on bringing the Lightning over, but I'm hoping this will help convince them. We need it, and I would love to have it. All right. So for our hop today, it's really not that far for us to get to Menorca. So what we'll do is we'll take off. We'll kind of have a look around the airport just so I can show that off. And then we'll do some fun shenanigans around the northern side of Mallorca here. As you can see, there's a whole bunch of mountains that we can play with there. And then we'll just hop straight over to Menorca, bring her in, and land. Pretty straightforward. But as always, you know that I like to do these startup quote unquote tutorials. I put it in quotes because it's not meant to be official, and I certainly don't do everything by the book. I do it by memory primarily. So we're going to go with that. All right. But let's see if we can get everything started up here. I'm just making sure all my switches are where they should be. Looks like we are. Okay, so first thing we're going to need is the battery switch, which is over here, and I happen to have that on my Virpil HOTAS, so we'll flip that switch up. The next switch that I like to do is the master ignition switch, so we'll flip that one up as well. All right, there we go. Now we will need our lights, so position lights. We'll flip you on and you on. Okay, there we go. Now we should also turn on this compass switch. That's basically our avionics. I'm not 100% certain on that one, but I do know that that one needs to come on. Okay, we will need fuel, of course. So right down here, you're going to see two little fuel cocks. I can zoom in right there. Hopefully you can see it. There it is. And I am going to put this to, let's see, where's my reserve tank? Yeah, we'll put it to the right. There's one. There's two. We will also need fuel pumps, but we do not want to turn those on just yet. There is a reason for that. This aircraft does model engine failures and hot starts, and you will blow up this engine if you add the fuel pumps a little too early. We're going to avoid that at all costs. All right, now, another important thing that I need to make mention to you, since we're pretty much at that point in time, these are your mixture levers, and of course, you will notice that you've got two, one for each engine. In order to move these, not only do you need to have an axis for the mixture lever, but you also need to have a button bound to your HOTAS that will basically activate the axis. So I happen to have that, so I can press that button there, and you'll see that I can now move the mixture lever. Now, if I press the button again and try to move the mixture level, of course, you can't see what my fingers are doing. Right now, I'm actually moving the slider that I have for the mixture lever, and nothing's happening. It's not moving. It's pretty much stuck in place. So I can push it again, and we'll turn it back to the off position. This is of extreme importance, so try to remember that should you decide to get this aircraft. You need one button to activate the mixture lever axes, and you need, of course, the axes themselves. If you happen to have separate levers on your hardware, that's even better, but failing that, you can move both of them together with one slider, so that'll be fine. All right, now, next order of business. We are going to need to get a little bit of gas going, and we use these switches here for that. These are going to be your primers. We really only want to do that for like a second, if that much. Again, if you overdo it, you run the risk of blowing up this engine. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take our throttles, and you will hear it click as I put it just into the idle position or the idle stop. So that'll be about half an inch thereabouts of throttle. And once that is done, I can activate each of these primers for just a second. So I'm going to hit the first one. You'll notice that goes up. See, it went up to about 5 and then went back down. And we'll do that for the right one, and watch that. There we go. And that's it. That's all I'm giving it as far as priming. The temperature is kind of warm out here today, so we really don't need to worry too much about, this engine being too cold, or both of these engines being too cold. But we will need to start, so let me get my magnetos on. These are your magnetos here, and it's good if you have like a rotary knob that you can use. So we'll get the left one set to both, and we'll set the right one to both as well. There we go. Now we're ready for start. Now, here's where the fun happens. So the starter on this thing is one of those that you need to energize before you engage. So these two switches here are three-way switches. If you flip it one way, it does the energizing, and if you flip it the other way, it does the starting. So what you will want to do is you'll want to energize for about 12 to 15 seconds, which you'll hear everything wind up. And once that happens, you will flip it to the actual starter and then quickly move the corresponding mixture lever to its auto rich position, which is like right there in the middle is where we're going to put it. Okay, so let's see that in theory. We're actually going to start with engine number 1 this time around. All right, so first we want to energize, and you're going to notice the prop spinning. You can hear everything winding up. And again, we're looking for about 12 to 15 seconds. Right about there should be good. Pretty much the way that I judge it is when the amplitude doesn't increase anymore. So this is as loud as it's going to get. So we'll flip it forward, wait for the engine to catch, and pull that mixture knob up. Let go of the starter, and look at that. Good start on engine 1. Pretty awesome stuff. So now we need to repeat the process. However, since we've got engine 1 going, it's going to be a little bit more difficult for us to hear the energizer. So we'll need to rely on the prop spinning as our cue as to when to flip it to start. So let's go ahead and do that. Energizer on. And we're waiting for the prop to start spinning. There it goes. Counter-rotating prop, so it's going in the opposite direction. You can count off 15 seconds if that helps. Okay, I can definitely hear the Energizer now, so I think we're pretty good. Flip it to start. That's what we were waiting for. There we go. All right, so now that we have that set, what we can do to make sure that our mixture knobs are in the same position, we can click that little button to activate the axes, and you'll notice that the mixture knobs moved slightly. So now we can pull that up to where it should be, which is going to be right about there. And then we'll push the button again to disable the axis, so that way we don't inadvertently move it. But there we go. That's all we needed to do. Both engines are started. We're just waiting for everything to run up. In fact, we'll set our RPM at about 1,000, which you will notice right about there. There we go. Both engines are good to go. Now, the other important thing after you start, you're going to want to get your generators on. So these two switches here are covered. Typically, I will leave the cover open to remind me that the generators are off. But in this instance, I just loaded into the aircraft and by default, they're closed. But I did flip them to the up position, which indicates they're on. So we can now close the cover again. And while we're at it, let's go ahead and get our landing lights on. This thing doesn't really have taxi lights, but landing light will have to do. And we don't really need the gun heaters because I'm not really going to show you like any combat or anything, but I'm going to turn it on anyway just because I'm in the habit of doing so. All right, so we're checking to make sure that we've got enough fuel. We do. The tanks are looking good. We can switch around as we so desire, and in fact we will. We will switch from the reserve tanks to the main tanks once we are on the runway and ready for takeoff. All right, altimeter, let's see. We should be at 29.94. That looks about right, so I'm gonna go with that. And everything else is pretty much set. Okay, so as the temperatures and everything come up, we can now close our canopy. And we will work on getting the transponder on. Now, this transponder is kind of weird. It will allow you to go up, but it won't allow you to go down. And I think that's a bug that FlyingIron needs to address. But we are squawking 7,000, so we may as well put it on alt from now. As is typical for me in X-Plane, I am not using the ATC, and I do not have traffic running, even though I do have traffic global, so we can bypass all of that pretty much. Our prop pitch is currently set to full, so we're pretty much good to go there. One thing we are going to need, well, maybe we won't need takeoff flaps for this, because this is a really long runway. But just for sake of argument, we're going to go through our typical controls wipeout, which means we're going to go to the outside view really quick and take a look from the outside. All right, so everything checks out, and now would probably be a good time to get our fuel pumps on, so we'll go ahead and hit those there. Does create a little bit extra noise, but it's hardly noticeable if you're already in the cockpit with the engines on. But everything looks good there. I'm also going to turn on our oxygen. This is our blinker here, so we'll just flip this little switch, and you'll notice it, well, starts blinking. We should also set our trim, so let me go ahead and set that up really quick here. I usually put it to about the 12 o'clock, just after its start position, and that should help us on takeoff. Now, the wind is blowing out of the east, roughly about 064, and we do know that we have runway 6 here, and I believe this is 6 left, if I'm not too mistaken. So we're going to need to back taxi that way and head to the runway there. So as soon as I get the parking brakes off, pretty much we're going to need to make a sharp left turn, so that way we're not getting in the way of this Thai 747 here. Not quite certain why this is here, but we're going to go with it. It's a tourist destination. All right, so parking brakes can come off. And let's go ahead and give it a little bit of throttle here just to move forward. In older aircraft like this, you definitely want to move forward before you start turning. You don't want to stress the landing gear too much. But there we go. Now, one thing I will say, since I added this payware scenery, and of course, I also told X-Plane to draw all of the static aircraft, FPS has dropped a bit. It's actually dropped considerably for my liking in VR. So take that as like a word of caution. Unless you have something that's lighter on FPS, maybe you don't want to have the static aircraft all over the place. Typically, what I will do is I will actually go into WED, which is the world editor. There's a link to that in the video description below as well. And I will actually adjust the airport to add my own static aircraft. If I happen to know exactly which airlines it is that fly in here, I will typically just put those in there manually using some of the scenery library objects that are easily obtainable online for free. And that way I can disable the whole X-plane draw static aircraft and save myself a little bit of FPS. Now, the other thing that you may have noticed in some of the other videos that I have posted about this Orbx Balearic Islands is whenever we get close to any of the built-up areas, typically we do lose a little bit of FPS. There is a reason for that, too. It's called automobiles. Yeah, it seems weird, but there are some bugs with this scenery that I have seen where if you've got a buildup of cars, it tends to tank your FPS. And as we may have noticed in the Huey video, cars tend to like to congregate around roundabouts. So Orbx, if you're watching, that is an area of opportunity for you to fix, and I'd be willing to bet that'll solve most people's FPS issues with this scenery package right then and there. Okay, well, enough of my yammering. We still have a little ways to go to get to 6 left, so we'll go back to the outside view really quick, and when we come back in, we should be about ready to take the active. Okay, so we made it to runway 6 left, and we're just about ready to go. Now, one thing I did do kind of off camera there is I opened up all of our various cooling flaps, so just to kind of point those out there. So we want these two here set to automatic, which is the topmost position, and we want these two opened up, which is going to be the bottommost position. With these two switches, you're going to want to hold them down for a little bit while they open up and then let it go. We can also open up these. However, I don't think it'll be necessary. I think we're running pretty cool as it is right now, so we're good to go. And of course, the other thing that I did was turn on both of those fuel pumps, which I'm not sure if you saw that earlier because of how I'm having to crane my head down. And we also changed our fuel tanks from reserve to main. Main is the 10 o'clock position if you're pointing straight ahead like this. All right, so we're pretty much set to go. As I mentioned, no flaps will be needed for this one, so we'll go ahead and take the active. I'm always in the habit of looking for traffic, even though I know I've got traffic global turned off. But let's get our parking brakes back off, and we'll head out on the runway. We'll give it a little bit of throttle here. Now, as we're doing our takeoff, we're probably not going to go much faster than about 40 or 45 on the manifold pressure. Really don't need to go into the red line for a takeoff on this, but we do have a lot of runway. We've got a lot of time, and we really want to get up to about 100 miles per hour before we actually start rotating. If we had flaps, of course, we could do that in a shorter length, but we're going to forego that this time around. And just to remind you, once we take off, we're going to go straight for a little bit, then we're going to hang a right, and we're going to turn around the airport there, so that way I can show you all the additional bits of scenery that come with this payware airport. All right, we're pretty much where we need to be right now, so I'm just going to line us up as best as I can. We know that's going to change once we start rolling. And we'll go ahead and go brakes down, throttles up, manifold pressure's up to 30. We'll hold it there for a second, make sure everything looks good. It does. Bring manifold pressure up to 40, and we'll start rolling. And we'll bump it up to about 45, which is right at the afterburner detent for this particular throttle. All right, so now we're watching our airspeed. Closing in on 100 miles per hour. Looking good, right about there. We can start pulling her up just a touch. There we go. She practically flies herself off the ground. So nice and easy, nothing too funky, nothing, too sharp or anything. We will get our gear up. There we go. And we can actually start trimming her down a little too while we're at it. And we'll keep the power there for a little bit as we climb out, just to make sure we get enough altitude. We are currently at 350 feet above sea level. Well, now 400. But yeah, as soon as we pass over the eastern end of the airport, we'll go ahead and turn around. And you can already start to see what I was talking about regarding the difference between this scenery and the Orbix scenery. The coloration of the trees is a little different. The coloration of the ortho photos is a little different. But they do kind of mesh for the most part. So it's really not too bad looking. Of course, it's hard to tell because we are in a P-38, which is notorious for not having very good views of what's going on below you. But we are not going to let that stop us. On the contrary, we are going to take a quick look, and we may actually do the picture-in-picture as well. But at least we'll begin our turn around the southern side of the airport, so that way I can show you what that looks like. Just trimming her up here. All right, now that we are airborne, we'll probably want to pull our RPMs back a little bit. So I'm going to get her down to about 26, roughly. So that's the prop pitch lever that I'm moving, the two little black knobs to the far left. And there we go. We're in a nice controlled turn here. So the pretty good indicator as to what you get with this airport, look for all the lush green color ortho, and of course all the items that are on top of them. I shouldn't say all, most of the items that are on top of them, because some of these items are actually Orbix items. But the airport, of course, we can see with all the various trees on the far side there. All of that is included. All the custom buildings like the terminal here at Palma de Mallorca, all of that is included. And typically, whenever I will add an airport, as I mentioned before, I'll go into WED and actually put static aircraft, so that way I don't have to have X-planes, static aircraft being drawn. I didn't do that this time around because I actually wanted to see what it would generate, and it actually looks pretty fleshed out. I like it. Definitely saved me a couple of hours of placing aircraft by hand. And then if we look on the left-hand side, you'll notice the grass looks a little bit more olive colored rather than the vibrant green color that we have going on here. So that is kind of your indicator that everything on this side of the aircraft is pretty much Orbix, and everything on this side is just Sim. And that does include a lot of these hotels that you're seeing out here. All of that is part of the whole Just Sim. Now, I don't know if they have a lot of the exclusion zones in there, so it is possible that we may actually be seeing some default Orbix buildings poking through the scenery, as it were. But I think everything meshes together really well, so I'm actually kind of impressed with that. All right, but we will say goodbye to the airport here. I'm going to trim us back down a bit, and we're going to head to the far side of the island and pretty much duplicate what we did with the pond racer during that video. We're going to do our shenanigans where we fly around the mountains, and then we will get to our cruise altitude and head towards Menorca. So for right now, we'll hop to the outside view as we make our way to the westernmost side of Mallorca. So here we are on the western side of Mallorca. So we're going to pass by that city there, and you'll have to forgive me. I really did not do my homework, so I don't know the names of any of these cities, unfortunately. But I do know my landmarks, so we're going to use that to our advantage here. All right, we're still running basically at 85% throttle, so I'm going to pull us back down to about 50% throttle, which will give us roughly around 33 or 32 on the manifold pressure. That should be fine. We're still below the lower cloud level. There should be two. There's that level there, and then there's a slightly higher level above. We're going to head towards those mountains, though, so that should be fun and interesting. But first, let's hit the deck. Let's see how fast we can get this puppy. We're currently going 270 miles per hour, so yeah, we're definitely getting up there. I'm going to pull the power back a little bit on the RPM, so prop pitch is coming down. We're at 2600 RPM right now. Everything is looking good. Quite impressed. So yeah, we're starting to lose a little bit of FPS again, but again, this is normal. And now that we're down, I'll go ahead and increase our throttle a little bit more. So as soon as we pass by this town, the seaside town here, we're going to head over to that mountain. We're going to do some shenanigans. So I'm thinking, because I'm kind of getting tired of talking here, why don't I just put it to the outside view for a little bit? I'm not even certain if I'm going to add any music to it this time around. I'm not sure I have any tracks that I really want you to hear. But we'll go ahead and head over in that direction and we'll do some shenanigans really quick here. And we'll do it from the outside view.
Does it exist? Will I be found? What's waiting for me? A black and burned out shadow of myself. And I'm praying to you as I calm myself down. But I'm falling too soon without a sound. Forever in my youth, will I ever find endlessly chasing? My life is racing now. Oh, and I'm looking for clues as I calm myself down. But I search and I lose every time. Oh, and I'm praying to you as I calm myself down. But I'm falling too soon without a sound. Oh, now I search and find. Am I all alone? I drown in my fears. But is there some place waiting for me? Another place. Another place. Do I have faith? Can I escape? Oh, the pleasure of leaving this place is deceiving now. Oh, and I'm looking for clues as I calm myself down. But I search and I lose every time. Oh, and I'm praying to go as I calm myself down. But I'm falling too slow without a sound. Without a sound. I crash and fall, I wonder so fast. If I say, who's that goodbye, goodbye to me? My next second coming alive to finally be and find a place that I won't leave. Now it seems a world away. Now it seems a world away. And I say I'm the next in line, yeah. I'm waiting for the day and I finally get away with a piece of me inside. See, I'm the next in line. Oh, oh, oh.
right, so hopefully you enjoyed that. One of the things that I should have done as I was doing my shenanigans there is I should have caged my ADI. You notice it's looking kind of wonky right now, so what we can do is we can get it back to a neutral position and use the cage uncage button, and that should help, I hope. All right, so to activate that, we're gonna need to flip this little knob just to the right of the ADI. So once again, I need this little guy here. All right, so let's get ourselves zeroed. Right about there, cage it and uncage it. It's a little bit off, but it'll work. It will work. All right, so we are basically done with our shenanigans, and we need to now point ourselves towards Menorca, so that way we can finish up this flight before sunset arrives. All right, so we're gonna use a little X-pad here. We'll open her up, show map, and LEWL is a pretty good indicator that I'm heading towards Menorca. This is the airport that we're aiming for right here. That's the main international airport there at Menorca. And this is us right here. So we still have a little ways to go, but I want to say we're pointed pretty much in the correct direction to get to the island. So I'm feeling good about that. I will want to move a little bit to the left, however. Just kind of line us up. I'm thinking we're at what? 080 roughly. Yeah, let's change it a little bit. Let's make it closer to 070. So we'll level out. And we can actually use Autopilot in this. We do have Autopilot available to us. So I'm going to go ahead and activate that. We'll get our heading hold on, so that'll keep us exactly where I would like us to be. And let's see, what altitude are we at? Just about 3,000. You know what, let's go over the clouds. We've got our oxygen on today, so let's bring it up to about 11,000 feet. And I think that should be good for our little cruise over to Menorca. So once again, we'll go back to the outside view as we climb to cruise altitude. Okay, so it looks like we are making good climb. We're at about between 1,000 and 1,500 feet per minute. There's a little bit of turbulence. The air above me is a little bit more turbulent, so you can expect us to kind of bounce around just a little bit here. And we're also expecting the winds to change because we know for a fact that there is a difference in the direction of the runway between Menorca and Mallorca. It's actually pointing more to the north. So I'm pretty sure we will pick up that Mediterranean Sea breeze once we get a little bit closer to Menorca, and that should help us come in probably towards the north. So I'm thinking runway 2. Yeah, that sounds about right, runway 2. All right, we're still climbing though. We are only at 6,000 feet, well, close enough. But we're still making good time. We got plenty of gas. The eagle-eyed in the audience may have noticed the gas gauges are a little bit different. Well, I had a little bit of technical issues when I was first recording this, so you're actually seeing 2 recordings spliced together. One took place at the airport for our startup, and the second one has been this entire flight from the moment I got to the hold short line. So there you go. Little tips and tricks for you there. All right, but we're getting close to the coastline. So it looks like we're making good time here. It is going to take us a little while to get there, and I really don't have a whole heck of a lot to talk about. I'll probably pop up some quick facts right about now on the P-38 Lightning, letting you know some of its basic statistics, how it performed during World War II, some notable aces, all of that kind of stuff. I'll kind of look up on Wiki and sites like that, and you'll be seeing that flashing right about now. But once we actually get over the water, it's going to take us a little while to get to our top of descent close to Menorca. So at that point in time, we'll just do the magic of editing and we'll pick it up right about at top of descent. But I do definitely want to get us up to at least 10,000 feet. We'll see how the clouds look once we get up there, and we'll feel what it's like turbulence-wise. It looks like it's mild turbulence, but it is starting to push the P-38 around a little bit. I will say, though, that I am incredibly impressed at the work that FlyingIron Sims has done to model this aircraft, and I really, really, really hope that they're going to bring it to Microsoft Flight Simulator as well. We need this aircraft in MSFS. Simply beautiful stuff right there. I just love it. Now, speaking of X-Plane, of course, we're still waiting for X-Plane to catch up as far as, well, the clouds, the sky colors, and so on. And we do know for sure that they are working on it. But one of the things that has not been confirmed just yet is, of course, whether or not they're going to go to fully volumetric clouds, or if it's going to be this stuff where you get kind of close to a cloud and it just wipes you out. Hopefully, they're going to go fully volumetric, so that way they can actually be on the same playing field as Microsoft Flight Simulator and now DCS, which I still need to give you some DCS videos. I'm working on that as well. But yeah, I do know for a fact that they have revamped their atmospheric lighting model, so that'll be interesting to see. And they've even, as of this past week, shown a preview of one of the airliners that they're working on for the next iteration of X-Plane. The other thing that we do not know yet, and I do see this come up a lot, especially on Facebook, we do not know if the next generation of X-Plane is actually going to be called X-Plane 12. In interviews with Austin Meyer, who is, of course, the brainchild behind X-Plane, he did say that he wanted to kind of get away from the whole numbering convention system. So don't be too surprised if we end up with for example, X-Plane Next Generation. I mean, I have no concrete proof that they're actually going to end up deciding to do this, but it's certainly possible. Anything's possible as far as Austin is concerned. It is, after all, his simulator, and he can do what he wants. But I do see that pop up a lot. We don't know for sure if there's X-Plane 12 coming up, or if this is going to be a part of, say, X-Plane 11.6. I do know that we can go by their previous track record. When they got to X-Plane 10.5, that's when X-Plane 11 came around. So typically they'll go about halfway up the numbering scheme before they move on to the next number. We just don't know for sure if that's going to happen yet. And of course, Laminar Research is playing their cards kind of close to the deck. All right, so we're just about at 9,000, so 1,000 more feet. We'll bring it up to about 10,000 because I can still see some clouds ahead of me, and I really should be seeing beach right about now. And once we reach 10,000, I will go ahead and level us out. We'll go back to the outside view really quick, and then we'll pick it up once we get close to Menorca. All right, so I hope you enjoyed the little pop-up commentary that's been popping up right about now to give you a history of this aircraft. And you can definitely see why I enjoy it. Pretty much anything that the Lockheed Skunk Works has come up with has caught my radar. This one, most definitely. If I were around in World War II, I think I probably would have wanted to fly this one as much as I would have wanted to fly like the Corsair and the P-40 and the Hellcat. It's just such an amazing bird. Absolutely love it. And I have been flying it in IL-2 pretty much exclusively. I'm still long overdue to give you a preview of IL-2, but that's coming at some point in time. All right, here we go, Angels 10. So we're gonna put our altitude hold on. Aircraft will level itself out. We will go to the outside view, and then through the magic of editing, we will appear on the other side of this channel, getting close to Menorca. Alrighty folks, welcome back. As you can see, we made a slight adjustment to our course there because I wanted to show you a little bit more of the island before we begin our top of descent. Our airport is pretty much directly ahead, but we're not quite at the right angle to come in on the runway just yet. So at this point in time, we are going to turn off the autopilot altogether. And we're going to begin our descent into Menorca. So I'm going to pull the throttle back to idle, and that of course will have the effect of having us drop like a rock, so to speak. Use that term loosely. And once we get a little bit lower, I will increase our RPM back up to where it should be for a takeoff and landing, but for right now we'll keep it right around 25-ish. We should be fine. We don't want to drop too much, so I'm kind of giving it a little bit of back pressure here just to kind of keep the gauge where it should be. We'll see if we can scooch under these clouds here. Is it going to wipe me out or not? That's the real question. No, looks like we're good to go. Now, we're not actually going to the same airport that we used for the Huey video. We're actually going to the main airport, which of course, you know, I'll always have that flashing at the bottom, but unfortunately, I didn't do my notes this time, so I completely forgot the name of the airport that we're actually coming into. I just know that it's the main international airport there. And it is a little bit to the right, so we're going to need to adjust for that accordingly. But we're going to keep coming down. We are at, what is it, just shy of 6,000 feet right now. So I do know that the airport should be off in that direction, pretty much right there. You can't really see it that well, but that cloud, that little small cloud there, if you draw a line directly left of it, The lightish gray area that you're seeing, that's pretty much our airport. All right, let me give us some power here and trim us back up a little. We're at 4,000. I'm going to bring us down to about 3,000, maybe 2,000, somewhere in between there. We still have the power down really low, so we should be good to go there. Let me get our landing lights back on. There we go. That should be fine. And yeah, this is the island that we set fire to in the last episode and then proceeded to act like heroes after we outed the fires. So welcome to Menorca, folks. This is, of course, the last of the video series that I will be doing for the Balearic Islands. So in the next Explain episode, we'll be going someplace completely different. I think I've shown enough of this island package for you to get a really good idea as to how it is, and you can decide for yourself if it is in fact something you would like to pick up. It is Orbix, so you know there's a lot of quality in it, but you know it also does have the unfortunate side effect of being heavy on frames per second. So as long as you keep that in mind as a VR user, you should be okay for the most part. I mean, it is Orbix though, so it's kind of worth getting because it just looks so good. There's really nothing else in Explain that looks as good. Of course, it can be argued that you can use HD mesh plus orthophotos to get the same effect, but the way that Orbix does it does kind of take it the extra mile with their custom buildings and custom trees, which is not something you're going to find in any quote-unquote default orthophoto package, so keep that in mind. All right, I think we're looking good. You can see the airport now, right there. We should be getting close to the ILS feather. I'm actually going to use my touch controller and zoom in a little bit to this island so I can see exactly where it is I need to turn. This is our airport, Lima Echo Mike Hotel. That's the one that we're looking for. All right, so we're going to need to start slowing down. I'm going to go to the outside view as we position ourselves to where we need to be in order to bring this bird home. All right, so we've got our power pulled all the way back. Basically trying to bleed off enough power so I can get the gear down. Our gear limit speed is 176 miles per hour, and you can see we're just about at 160. So we're good to go for gear. Go ahead and drop them. And we will, of course, need flaps. Now, the flap limitation speed is about 150 miles per hour, so we'll need to keep that in mind. We'll, of course, need to adjust our trim so that way we can stay below 150 as we're coming down. This is going to happen relatively quickly. You can see the airport right there, so we're trying to make sure that we get where we need to be for glide slope, and then we're going to need to make a sharp left turn. There's the little seaside village that we saved the other day from the raging fires in our Civilian Huey. And I'm actually going to make our turn now. I can't really see the lights, the VASI lights, but we're going to work with it anyway. We're at 1,000 feet, so I'm pretty sure we're kind of low right now. All right, airport, where are you? There you are. I see you. I see you. All right, we're just below 150, so I'm going to drop our flaps. And according to the VASI lights, we are low. This is okay, though. As long as I keep us level, we should be good to go. Speaking of which, let Let me make my adjustments here really quick. We don't want to get below 100-ish. So we're going to trim ourselves out for about 110 miles per hour at roughly about 400 feet per minute on the glide slope. Flaps should be full right about now, so we're just using the rudder to kind of inch our way where we need to be. And we'll watch our speed. There we go. We are now trimmed for speed, and we've got a good rate of descent going here. We're actually starting to get a little high on the glide slope, so I'm leaving the stick alone and just monitoring our power here, bringing our power in. One last look outside as we make this approach, and then we'll bring her in. Okay, we're looking good, and I'm feeling good about this approach. Starting to dip a little bit much here, so I'm going to give it just a touch more power. And here we go. So, once again, welcome to Menorca, our final destination on the Balearic Islands tour. And right about here is good, so we'll start flaring just a touch and drop the power. Not too shabby. Not as bouncy as my typical P-38 landing, so you know what? I'll take it. Throttle completely to idle. And we're going to park over there where the GA is. So let's go ahead and get some brakes going here. We'll look for our turnoff. Now, this airport is not a custom airport. This is actually default X-plane. I figured we had enough frame rate robbing airports for the day, so we'll go with something easy here. But there we go, folks. So once again, this aircraft that I've been showing off today is the FlyingIron Simulations P-38 Lightning. That's a Lockheed P-38L Lightning. It is, of course, payware, and the link is in the video description below. In my opinion, it is one of the best in-depth aircraft that's out there for X-plane. Granted, it does model a lot of things, but it is not, I guess the buzzword is study level as far as, say, for example, a hot start TBM might be, or something along those lines. But you can have a ton of fun. I didn't even scratch the surface of what you can do with the weaponry. I know on previous FlyingIron Sims review videos that I've done, I have actually shown you that you can do like dogfighting or bombing with their various fighters. You can do that, of course, with this. Just remember, though, that all of your guns are in your nose. They are not on your wings. It's actually a better way to have them, but, you know, keep that in mind if you ever decide to do any World War II dogfighting in X-plane, which is definitely doable. All right, I'm thinking I want to park next to this, what is this, a Learjet? Some kind of biz jet. Let's see, I'm thinking I should probably make a Huey here, so let me give her some throttle. I'm going to come to a complete stop here. And we'll just flip her around. But as for me, I am just about done. So, as always, I would like to thank you for watching. This has been BelGeode. I have been flying in X-Plane 11. I believe this particular version is X-Plane 11.55. So we're waiting to see what comes next in the world of X-Plane to see if they're actually going to bring themselves up to the same standard as Microsoft Flight Simulator and DCS, and now even P3D has gotten to. So yeah, fun times ahead. I don't mind saying it, folks. This is a great time to be alive for a flight simmer. But I appreciate you accompanying me on my journey, and if you have enjoyed what you've seen, please feel free to give me a like, and don't forget to subscribe if you have not already done so. And the next time you see me, we will be in a different part of the world with all new aircraft that I want to show you, and I'm sure we'll have just as much fun and shenanigans then. But until that time, I sincerely hope you all have a great evening, and I will catch you all later. Ciao!